Welcome back, everyone, to our AI webinar series. We're delighted to have some new faces here on today, or new names, and some old ones as well. My name is Kira Griffin, for anyone who doesn't know, and I'll be the host for today's webinar and the rest of the series. So this is our second episode in this series. Last month, we talked about we kind of focused on resetting how people think about AI in quality, regulatory, and R&D. We kind of brought in the term shadow AI and how people are bringing their own AI to work and the risks around that. We also talked about how using the LLMs you have accessible to you, it can switch from low risk to high risk depending on how you prompt it. So we kind of showcase different examples of that. So if anyone wants to catch up on that session, all of our webinars are now on our YouTube. So I'll make sure to send out the link after this session. But today we're focusing on finding the right place to start with AI. So our team will be going through the process we use internally and with our clients to find the right place to start. And just as importantly, where's the wrong place to start? So our presenters today, we have Colm O'Rourke back with us again, our quality and regulatory SME. And Colm will ground the discussion in practical realities of the industry. So making sure that any AI we talk about and introducing it to any workflow fits in under the regulations of the industry. We also have Connor back with us today, our head of innovation. And Connor really understands what's possible with this technology and can keep us aligned and up to date with the most recent changes in a rapidly evolving space that is AI. I know it's hard to keep up and there's new releases every day. And we have our new guest speaker on today, which is Jack Cunningham. So Jack works in Trinzo in our margin improvement business line, delivering OpEx and lean services to clients. So Jack and his process, when he brings us through his methodology, he'll show us how you can actually solve problems with AI by finding the right place to start. So here's our agenda. I'll pass it over to Colm now in a minute to talk about why we're here today and our approach to starting. Jack will then take us through a case study of a complaints process, and then Connor will do a live demonstration on ChatGPT on how you build out an AI solution. So we'll wrap up within the 45 minutes. And if anyone has any questions, please use the Q&A box or the chat and we'll answer them throughout. So with that, Colm, I'll pass it over to you.
Lovely. Thanks, Kira. Yeah, so why are we here? Yeah, a question we often ask ourselves, I suppose. So what we mean with this is why are we tackling this particular topic today, and finding the right place to start with AI being our focus of this webinar. And I guess we're tackling this as part of, Kira mentioned, this is a progression, a series. This is our second in a series. And last month we looked at that kind of, as well as other things, we looked at like specific use cases of AI. Here we're going to broaden this a little bit, and I'm really excited for you to see what Jack's going to take us through, and then the demo from Connor, and it's like we might say a slightly more involved use of AI at a process level. And next month we're going to be looking again at AI being deployed in a slightly larger scale. So I guess why we're tackling this topic is it fits in our particular our flow of our series. But really the main reason we've chosen to tackle this now is we're seeing a lot of questions in industry. I guess we're seeing a lot of industry leaders questioning the return on investment with AI deployments. And we see it, and I'm sure everyone listening in sees it as well, like the hype that's around AI, and there's a lot of it justified and a lot of it not justified. But we see a lot of large scale AI deployments that just don't really have a clear return on investment. And I suppose it's something we're quite passionate about, and at Trinzo, like bringing in, like say, Jack's experience from that OpEx and lean perspective to help us identify the right place to start. And then and something you'll hear us talk about quite a bit throughout this webinar is we need to start small, right? And it's really important Because what we're seeing, there's a lot of information coming out about staff being perhaps hesitant to take on, or to be part of large scale AI projects. So when we find the right place to start and we begin small, and then we can scale from there, it allows us to bring the team along with us. So I guess that's kind of why we're tackling this particular topic today. And I think hopefully by the end of this, you're going to come away with that idea of how to find the right place to start. And thanks for bringing this up, Kira. This is, I think, a really, really important principle here is not every problem is suitable for AI, right? And that's maybe a trap that some companies are falling into because of the hype that's around it. Just throw AI at everything. And that's not appropriate, not in our opinion anyway. You have to find the right place to start. And Jack's going to help us look at that. And then beginning with that smaller, the crawl, walk, run. And Connor, I don't know if you have anything on the crawl, walk, run. I think you might have something to add there as well.
Yeah, just like exactly as you were saying there, a lot of organizations start off trying to eat the cake in one bite, and even if you deliver from a technology perspective, you'll find very quickly that your adoption rates are very low after. So it's very important to start small, bring people with you, and solve real practical problems in people's lives today, and not big picture, vague, 20 years down the line issues.
Okay. Yeah, and thanks guys for giving me the opportunity to present to this one. I know I've been a participant in a number of them, so look, just happy to be here. I suppose what I'll take you through today is, as the guys mentioned, a process that we use for finding the right place to start. I think it's important to mention as well, though, that there can be multiple right places to start. There can also be multiple wrong places to start. And the process that we use here is about identifying one of those key places, one of those key areas to start, and then really digging in to identify the specific opportunities to work on first. So the example here is a complaints handling process, where the organization had identified that the end-to-end cycle time from intake to closure of a complaint was driving resource constraints and increasing the workload. So in order to identify where the specific improvements were and to evaluate AI's role, the approach that we took is an on-site workshop. So we do this workshop so that we can really dig into the underlying workflow, to first identify process improvements, understand then where AI can be implemented to enable those process improvements and enable the human, so that we be sure to build AI solutions into the new process as opposed to layering AI on top of a workflow that could have some underlying inefficiencies. If you go to the next slide, Kira. Thank you. So what is this workshop then? This is what we call an AI discovery workshop. So it's a process that we have tried and tested in different areas. We originally used it for evaluating manufacturing workflows, and supporting clients in identifying the right place to start on their lean transformation journeys. So as we saw a similar opportunity in the AI space and supporting organizations and identifying a right place to start, we updated and modified this process to be applied there. So it's an on-site workshop. It's in the room. We get the right people in the room. So for this example, it would have been a complaints handling team, a lab investigation team, some QC management, and we spend the days really fairly intensely working on the walls. It's fairly full on, but it's fun. Well, I think it's fun anyway. And so look, we run this for the people, and we kind of have three main rules for these workshops. The first being that the primary purpose is for us to learn together as a team. The second, that we use little to no slides, and everything we do is on the walls. So we leave the door open. Anyone can come in, and as you walk around, you'll see the progress, and it really gets people thinking and working through their processes. And the final being that the improvement recommendations that come out of this are generated by the people doing the work. We provide the facilitation and the coaching, but it's really the people who know and live in this workflow that will identify the key improvements that will have the most impact. So we run this through A3 to make, so define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And I'll speak a little bit about each of those sections in the next slide, but I think the last thing to say on this slide is just right here, just that, yeah, you're all right. Just that what's important, just as important as how we run this is why. So we use the to make methodology because it forces you to really start with that defined problem. And we do the workshop for the people because change management is obviously a massive thing here. And so you typically have your two sides of change management, your technical side of design, develop, and deploy, and then your people side of understand, accept, and use. And quite often those streams can become misaligned, and it's not until the point of deployment that people really understand what is happening. But when you do this in a workshop, you force the alignment of those streams. And when you enable people to map their own processes, identify their own pain points, and generate their own solutions, then that barrier to change is significantly reduced because, in a sense, the people become the change. They're the ones driving it. So then stepping through how we do this, define then. So this is typically something that'll be done in the weeks running up to the workshop to ensure that we're looking at the right area. And the critical thing is that we have a defined problem statement. So for this, as I mentioned, it is the end-to-end cycle time from intake to closure of a complaint. And one of the things, it's not the only thing for ensuring downstream adoption, as Connor mentioned, is that we're solving a problem that needs to be solved, that the organization is aligned, this is a real pain point, and that the people also highlight that, look, this is something we'd like to have solved. So when you bring a solution to something that people actually want delivered, you increase your adoption. And as well, when we look at this problem statement, that guide us through the workshop. So we've identified the cycle time as the key metric. So it's at X, we need it to be at Y, the gap is Z. Every opportunity downstream is going to be validated against that gap to see how much does it impact that. We have regulatory context called out here, and as Connor mentioned, that's some of the expertise that Cullum and them bring, and it's just to ensure that we look at responsible adoption of AI within GXP environments. Go to the next one, please, Kira. So measure and analyze then, and the real meat of the workshop. So we have 9 sections here. Again, it's typically done on 3 days. In this case it was, and it's done on the walls with the people. So the first thing we look at is what do we need to measure to understand where these opportunities may lie, and then how do we analyze those. So the first thing there is called those KPIs and metrics. So what we're really looking at is how can we understand the performance of the complaints handling process as a function of its outputs. So the cycle time would be a key one there, but there would be a number of other metrics around quality and so on. We then move into Gemba observation. So we sit down, we be quiet, take me through a complaint, take me through logging it on the system, and let's observe what actually happens. We map the core process then as it happens, not as it's documented. And we generally do this through IPO diagrams, so input, process, and output, which is critical for this type of evaluation, because not just what the process is, but understanding what's in it is instrumental in identifying whether AI can be a suitable solution. We look at the inputs and we identify any inputs that are feeding into the core process that are not generated in the process. That'll drive us to identifying enabling processes. So where are those inputs coming from? An example within the complaints process would be the lab investigation, and that's providing a critical input there. So when we're looking for improvements, we need to understand what that needs to provide to the complaints handling process. We also need to understand the impact of a solution in the whole ecosystem. For example, if we supercharge complaints, are we going to pass a bottleneck to lab, and how do we get ahead of that? We look at a cultural assessment. It's a 2-part assessment that we do. You might think, why are we looking at culture if we just want some AI solutions? But going through this process really highlights some things which may be hidden within the core processes, some things around tribal knowledge and key person dependencies, and that AI could be leveraged to mitigate. And as well, there are some key themes that may come up that would need to be actioned in order to improve downstream adoption. We spend some time looking at industry best practice then, because one of the things we commonly hear is, well, how can we get the people to support you in generating AI solutions if they don't know what AI is capable of. So the AI team spends some time in really coaching the guys through, in this specific context, what AI could be capable of, and also, as Kira mentioned, what it might not be capable of. So after we've gone through all of that, the team will have a sufficient knowledge to build a future state process. So up on the walls, and they'll map it out, how should this run? We can then do a gap analysis between the ideal state and what the current state is, which will generate our opportunity list. And some of those may just be quick win process improvements, and some of those we'll evaluate for AI suitability. And Kira will take you through how we do that assessment for AI suitability.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Jack. Yeah, as Jack said, we will analyze all the opportunities kind of with a suitability lens for AI. So some of them may be quick wins and some of them may be cultural changes that need to happen. So you wouldn't be throwing technology at it. But this is one of the lenses we would use to analyze if these opportunities for improvement would suit AI being involved, or would AI support these opportunities? So is the task repetitive? So if it's a task you do on a weekly, daily basis, you would want to likely spend some time building a solution around that. However, if it's something you might do once a year, it mightn't be on your top of your list to build an AI solution for that. Is it consistent? So, for example, if you generate a weekly report with a consistent output, that could be something that you would look and spend the time to build an AI solution for, rather than something that kind of changes on the regular, is different every time. Knowledge is an important one also. Does the task rely on accessing existing information? So if this project could be based off SOPs or any other documentation that you have already, it would be suitable for AI. However, if all the information is in some SME's head and it's not documented, you might not want to start there, because it would take more time to document it and get your data and your documentation right before you actually begin to build something. The complexity is an important one as well. Does the task involve multi-step reasoning or structured workflows? So if it's a very structured task, again, if it's consistent, it would be something you could look at building, or you would prioritize the least complex one. And delegation, I think this is a very, very important one also. Would you delegate it to a junior staff member? So if it's a task that is very kind of high risk, maybe it's client facing, maybe it's communicating with a regulatory body, it's not likely something you would give off to a junior staff member. So you want to make sure anything you're bringing AI into, you're not handing off the decision making, and you are the final approver. So maybe depending on your maturity within your company, you would start with a repeatable task that's not very complex and that a junior member of staff could do. So just from the kind of process and methodology that Jack described, these would be the deliverables of the discovery workshop. So you'd have your AI opportunity register, your roadmap, your final discovery report, and I think the really important one there is an upskill team. So I have had the pleasure of sitting in on a workshop that Jack has been running, and it was really engaging with the client team, and they really kind of came up with their own solutions and opportunities and prioritize their own work and their own roadmap. So and they really got upskilled on what's possible for their process with AI by us working together with them. So with that, I think, Colm, we're going to jump into the demo, but if you'd like to just give a description of this fictitious company and product.
Oh yeah. So this is for anyone that was here last month. This is the same thing again. So as to try and make the example more realistic, we're to make it more realistic, we're using a fake company and a fake product. So this is it's a class 3 implantable drug coated balloon. We're not getting into the the technical side of it, but this is the type of product. And then Connor's going to take us through the demo next of taking a particular piece of the complaint handling process and how AI can help optimize that.
Is it over to me now?
I think so.
Okay, guys. So I suppose this demo, to give you some context, a couple of months ago, I was out with Jack's team on a client doing a complaints handling session with him. And out of that session, I think there were 29 or 30 opportunities spotted, lots of them anyway. And I'd say 2/3 of those, there was scope for the use of AI, and about half of those were relatively low hanging fruit. But if you think about a couple of years ago, you've got all these different things you want to do. You're launching into an 18-month, 2-year IT project, full of danger, probably not worth the money, and so on and so forth. What I'm trying to show you today is how we can break that up into small little parts with the tools you already have access to, and very cheaply, very quickly, can start adding value and putting that together. Because you've got Jack's roadmap and understanding of the end-to-end process. You can pick out the specific parts of it and start tying them together over time and adding value as you go. So I'm about to show, is that enough context, Kira? Because she's been shouting at me all day for getting too technical with my context.
Yeah, that's perfect. Short and simple.
There you go. Now, don't be, I've made this as a skill. Originally, I built this as an agent, but it just takes too long to render in a demo. So this is just quicker. And I'm just going to talk you through how I set it up. If you have questions at the end, I can tell you the difference between a skill, a GPT, an agent, and Anthropic has similar stuff. They all have similar stuff. You have it in Copilot too. Okay, so this skill here is connected up to the distribution and quality service agreement. So often with products, you'll have different.
Connor, I'm sorry, it'd be really annoying. Can I jump in? Because just one clarification here to make sure we're everyone's on board. So when you're saying at the start we're using tools everyone has, what we're demoing this on is ChatGPT, because a lot of companies have, an enterprise subscription with ChatGPT, but it can also be done on Copilot, which a lot of companies have as well. And that those are the two examples we're giving here. And what you're going to show us is how within those tools that most people listening today probably already have, you can feed information and then deploy, a solution.
And here we're addressing, see here, I didn't give enough context.
Or maybe I'm just thick, I needed more. I don't know. But, I'll play that role happily.
It's exactly that, Colm. And what we're doing here is take it, this is one of those 30 opportunities. And this is the triage. When the complaint comes in, what the hell do you do? Like watching them do this in real time, thinking, God, I'd be having a nervous breakdown trying to get through what they're doing just to get the clock ticking. So how could we help them get the clock ticking in a less painful manner? And I suppose it was painful because it opened multiple systems, looked through loads of different agreements, all of this sort of stuff. So I suppose what I'm talking through here is, here's the agreement that you have with your contractors. Looking up that is a pain in the backside for the company that I was talking about. I don't know what it's like in your company, but you can have it all just programmed into the agent and it can do the search for you. They had to connect out, I think they had an Oracle system, the guys we were talking to. I've just made a CSV here in the background for simplicity, but we could connect this up relatively easy to your ERP system. There's obviously a standard operating procedure for triaging complaints, just upload the document. And this is a description of the product as per Colm's original invention a couple of months ago. Now, I'm not going to go through the instructions in much detail because I think we've gone through that sort of stuff a lot. But really what I'm doing is giving it the role, giving it the instructions, the process I want it to flow, and what the output I want from it. And you could do this in a persona or in whatever. Right, now here's where it all goes wrong. Now I have
do not invent information piece that you've put in there as well. It's very important.
Oh yeah, so like we've talked about that in other webinars. Telling it what not to do is almost as important as telling it what to do. Now I have here random emails that were generated about different stuff, and they're not 100% dissimilar from the type of emails that we saw coming in when we were on site. Jack will recognize the kind of format or flow to them. So you can see here, I've just copied and pasted an email across here. Technical inquiry about this. It's from this person in Tokyo. And you can see there's a lot of missing information here. Dear Novacura quality team, we received a report regarding this. The lot we have, and during a procedure noticed that it appeared to have an uneven coating upon removal from the packaging. The device was not used in the patient. Please advise on next steps for a return. So what this triage agent is going to do is not to reply to the customer, but is going to quickly check to see if this is reportable or not. So if I've got it to go through a series of things. Don't take too long. So the first thing it should ask is there any more context I want to add to this? So it's pulled out all of the information there from the email. It said it's not reportable as a serious at this stage because the device was not used in the patient. There's no reported death injury. The regulatory clock is not being triggered yet. And then more information about it. Here's the missing data if we wanted to follow up. And then it's asking, do I have any further context regarding this? I'm just going to go no. The next step that we saw that people had to do is now they have to fill out their QMS and everything like that. And it's asking, should I collate this data for information? Yes, to make it easy to copy and paste. And having the background templated, this is how I want the information to come up so that they're not opening multiple tabs and jumping between lots of different things. So it's all coming up in one document that they can copy and paste straight in. Ideally, in the future, you'd like to connect this up, but I'm looking for what can we do really, really quickly. And it is taking
on the first step, Connor, just because there might be, some people listening in here thinking like, oh, wow, ChatGPT is deciding if something's reportable or not for us, right? And that's not what's happening here, and we don't want that. And we've discussed this in the different risk levels of a use case. So AI deciding something's reportable or not is an incredibly high risk use case that we would not advise. But that's not the purpose of this here. It is kind of it's a starting place. The human is always making the decision, and it's really just cleaning up. It's an efficiency tool cleaning up the data. So just wanted to put that out there.
Very good. Thanks, Colin. So this you just copy and paste across into your QMS. It saves you a lot of time, a lot of potential for error and everything along that. And then they often need to communicate with different teams and just draft me up the email that I'll copy and paste and send on to the relevant teams. And you can see this is just assisting me, just speeding up a lot of that clerical work, reducing the margin for error, reducing having 20 different tabs open and lots of different systems open. And it's just like we can put this together really, really quickly for you. You can see it going off there. I want to move on to another scenario if possible. And you see the same thing with a more serious complaint or a different type of complaint. So you can see the versatility of something as simple as this. Now, because it's a skill, I got to go all the way back to the starting point, try and chat and don't do anything silly. That's it. This second scenario is a much more serious one. Okay. Come on. You can see I'm getting really good at copying and pasting.
Okay. We've been lucky. I'll jinx us now, but we've been lucky with glitches actually on these live demos so far.
Somebody's strangling me. He's in Australia, is he? He can't reach. Here we can see, to whom it may concern, I'm reporting a serious adverse event following your new sirolimus stent. The patient underwent, see, I suppose what I'm trying to get across here is there's an angioplasty. I've heard that before, but I don't have a clue what it is. You can imagine complaints handling people. There's a lot of vocabulary in here that they would need to call the clinical team, get updates and everything like that. it's a more complex situation. So we've put that in, and it immediately pulls out all the information. Again, asks me, do I want to put in more? But let's have a look and see what it comes up with. ERP status cannot be, so they can't find it because they haven't given us the proper lot number. Lot number not found. This should be treated as a complaint, reason for that. So now I've got vocabulary to start talking with my clinical team. It is potentially reportable in black, but I cannot make the final determination without other stuff involved. So this is putting you on alert. Yeah, the clock might be ticking. So anyway, that's that. Is there anything extra? I'm just going to go no, and then yes again. But you see the versatility. It's not telling you that this is reportable or not reportable, but it's going, you need to talk to someone. This looks more serious. You need to talk to someone. Yes, I'm just going through them. Any comments or questions from that?
I suppose if we were to develop and deploy something like this for a customer, what sort of timeline are you talking about?
So I was talking to Kira, it'd take about a week for the first one. And then as you got your base in place, you'd be down to 3 or 4 days and all the way down. We do 10-hour sprints internally, but that wouldn't include testing and user adoption and everything like that. So you can imagine how quickly you could build out 10 of those 30 use cases as and when your team is ready, and really get value out of it. Like, I'm not exaggerating saying overnight here, am I?
No, I mean, and I think it's really important to give this alternative perspective, and I think it is an alternative perspective because there's a lot of like I said at the start, a lot of big AI projects going on in our industry right now that are multi-month projects, right? And there's questionable ROI on them. And what we're talking about here is that you can simplify it. You can really simplify it. And within, a week or so, you can actually have something in that is starting to work. And it's not a big, massive bells and whistles process that's going to change anyone's world, but it is an efficiency gain. And I think a huge advantage of things like this is it's gaining familiarity for the operator with using AI, so that when inevitably, as in the months and years ahead, as we're using more and more AI, you are bringing your staff along on that journey, which is really, really important to do.
I have one more here that I suppose the reason I chose this one was because it looked similar to ones that were being passed on from one company to another. And you can see here that a lot more information is provided in this. So they're clearly automating. An automated email is sending the email to you, if you know what I mean. So you're getting second tier automation for your intake procedure. But you can see it handles it exactly the same way if I just press go on it.
And we just have a question in the chat there from Rahul. He was just saying that it looks really good. But he said, however, sometimes it's not immediately obvious if more information is required to make the complaint decision. Yeah. So have you encountered this complexity? And if yes, how does a solution like this operate given that reality?
Yeah, so that's where we'd work specifically with the team for the building out of this. What are the exact things you want to do? What I put together here is not what we would put together for any specific person. Like, we would change the templates, the format, the process it's going to go through, the information, the advice. So that we'd work with the team in order to identify what is suitable for your use case, how granular or how big we can go on it. So I suppose the answer to Raul's question is the configurability of this is endless, if you know what I mean. The critical things are you using it for the right job? Basically, are you sure you're not using it for the wrong job? Are we using it to make a decision well, that's a problem, if you know what I mean. How granular do we want to go? Where does it fit into your workflow? And then can we future-proof it insofar as if we have Jack's overall vision of the whole workflow, we can build it out bit by bit. So this thing here would pass on information to another one that we would build, which is another big problem that they had, is the countdown timer. So you can imagine as complaints come in, they'll have different countdown timers, and keeping track of that is an administrative nightmare. Imagine once you made a decision, countdown timer, start 10 days on this, it was feeding a dashboard that was live timing. That would be another couple of days work, and would remove enormous problems from a complaints handling team. Have I answered Raul's question there?
Yeah,
I think there's maybe one other element as well, and something I think it's good to touch on is so like Raul is asking here, if it may not be obvious if you need more information or not to determine whether it's a complaint. And this comes back to kind of the testing and, as you say, configuration, Connor. So part of a project like this is testing it. And I mean, we can say validation. I'm maybe hesitant to use the word validation a little bit, but it is something. Look, if you're deploying something like this, a company has to consider how is a notified body or how is a regulator going to look at my use of this system, right? And our perspective is this is a tool. It's an efficiency tool that's supporting an existing process. This is not the complaints process. This is a tool that is plugging in and supporting a particular part of the complaint process. Nevertheless, it needs to be tested. And there are many, many ways that you can test this using historic company data and several other ways. So I suppose that's a big part of that, the week or 3 days or however long it's taking is testing the accuracy and repeatability of something like this.
Kira told me not to say can I say what I was told not to say now that he said it?
I think you have to know.
Whatever it is, no. We have just one more question in there from Jonathan asking, is this a multi-agent process, and will we be reviewing how those agents interact in another session? Which I think is what we'll be looking at in next month. We'll be looking at the kind of the whole workflow. Today we took a specific task within the workflow, piece. But yeah, just another question as well, because I know this is very heavily focused on the complaints handling process, and not everyone on the call maybe.
Kira, to answer that, this is not a multi-agent thing, but it would be one of the agents that might feed into a multi-agent thing. But multi-agent brings lots of other challenges that we'll talk about next week. We'll talk about them next month, sorry.
Yeah.
Which is next week.
Yeah, so just a kind of a question around, I know this is very complaints handling process. That was the case study we talked through today. But if there's anyone on the call that may not be in this process, or if we step back maybe to kind of a project management role, Connor, what kind of opportunities have you identified within their work that you could build specific AI solutions like this for?
Well, exactly, with Jack's process, that like being at them, like as Kira was, as you were saying yourself, they're a lot of fun to be at, very physical, hands-on, manual, but that you've mapped out your process and what you want to achieve. And then, like, obviously there's project management 101s that every project manager needs. A lot of those really are how I leverage the general LLM in order to help me in my work, but we'd start putting together these little skills, agents, workflows, personas, everything like that, and putting them together to help you through your process in your project management. Project management is just ripe for all types of LLM usage.
Okay. Any more questions or comments, and we'll jump back into the slides.
I can't believe how much paper is used in a AI-based project. All the paper on the walls.
There's no computer either. Like, I think we had like 2 slides or something, but they were kind of in the background.
That's great. That's the way to do it. Yeah.
Yet to find an AI solution for digitizing that paper after the fact. So
yeah. take the pictures.
Do you want to talk through this slide, Jack? I know you kind of put it together maybe to capture kind of what we went through on the demo, but it might be helpful for people to visualize this.
Yeah, look, I think Connor explained it well there in his example. It was just to highlight what was happening and where this specific solution was developed in terms of the triage, and that in the previous state it required a lot of moving through systems and spending a lot of time waiting for systems, looking in different systems, searching for information, and then in Connor's future state, as he showed, that the system is set up to enable the person to have that information on hand in a much easier fashion. But I think, yeah.
Good. And yeah, I suppose just to, before we wrap up, I just might throw out another question there while we have the time. So obviously this session was finding the right place to start with AI. So if there was one nugget people should take from this today's and where to start, what would you recommend first? I'll pass it to you, maybe Colm first, and then we can go around.
I mean, I think start somewhere you're confident that if this is the first time a company is dipping their toe in implementing AI, be so careful and make sure that the first place you choose to start, you're guaranteed to have some wins, because everyone will be watching. You know, if it's the first time you implement it, and it needs to be a use case that is not complicated, that people are not going to resist, and that is going to have a very clear ROI. Even if it's not going to change the world, just be able to demonstrate, you know, to a leadership team that we did this specific implementation and it has reduced the time to this or increased this or something, even if it's just marginal, just somewhere that you're guaranteed a win.
Yourself, Connor, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, like obviously we say follow the Inspire framework, investigate needs, readiness, all that sort of stuff. But I think, as Jack says, you start with the people and can I solve a problem that they have today and let them solve it themselves. If I can find some use of AI that the person at the end of the day can practically use, that's your biggest win now and sustainable implementation long term.
Very good. Jack, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, look, just pretty much what the guys said. I suppose for me, from the lean perspective, the starting with the problem and involving the people in the solution is the critical thing. And yeah, just being sure that you're leveraging AI to enable a human to solve a problem, as opposed to let's make the fanciest solution and then layer it on, you know.
Yeah,
exactly as you're saying. Like a lot of you will be suffering with adoption problems. You've delivered big AI projects and nobody's using them, and like there's lots of reasons for that. But if you get I'm solving a practical problem, I've involved people in it, 101 change management would give you a much better opportunity to win in terms of adoption long term. Yeah. Kira, you didn't give your one piece of advice.
Right.
Well, yeah, I think mapping out the process is really important to know where you're going. And I think from this session, it sounds easier than it is. But yeah, the people part and the adoption and getting everyone together to work on this and be motivated is a huge challenge. The people part is always a challenge. So yeah, it's not as easy as we're making it sound. But I suppose that's why if you are if this is something that you're interested in and need support with, we do offer advisory and strategy consultancy, as well as our AI discovery workshops that Jack talked through today. So reach out if that's something you're interested in. And yeah, I'll have our contact details here. So I'll send this out after the call.
For anyone in Galway, Medevo coming over from Germany?
Yeah, if anyone is in Ireland or in Galway specifically, we'll be hosting an event on the 20th of May with some different industry speakers and some of our external partners. It's really medtech AI focused. So if you're interested in attending May 20th, just reach out to me and we can send you out an invite. But yeah, there's limited spaces, but I'm sure if you're interested, we'll squeeze you in somewhere. Okay.
Great job on the timekeeping, Kira. Look at that. Bang on.
Just on.
45.
Thanks a million, everyone. Chat to you later.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye.